you don't listen to 1988 Tops, like this is your plug to do so.
I would just sit and stare at the back of those cards.
I mean, we got a fish fry on here. We got a 700-foot home run. We've got a massive first baseman.
Every card has a story to tell.
Play ball!
Welcome to Ordinary Effort, where a bunch of random fans get some random baseball players and try not to biff the grid. I'm Mike here with my buddy Josh. We're looking at Immaculate Grid 278. And Josh, I know we've talked a lot recently. We've had a couple guests on who are really into baseball cards. Mike Santos was one of them, where we did Grid 316. And since then, we've been talking a lot about we got to dig up our old baseball cards. I think we've both done that. And this episode, if you're into baseball cards, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so this is a blast. When we had Adam Dorowski on from Sports Reference, he shouted out a guy and then was like, shout out to the 1988 Tops podcast. And both of us were like, what is the 1988 Tops podcast? You know, we're sort of like new to the podcast space. We launched our podcast and all of this a little over 6 months ago. And so we've been checking it out since. And if you don't listen to 1988 Tops, like this is your plug to do so. It's such a fun show. And we are so lucky to have David and Matt with us. So I'm going to bring them on and not hold the suspense anymore. David, Matt, pumped to have you guys on. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks a lot. We're glad to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here. I've gone back and listened to the entire archive of your podcast, and so it got me back into the grid. So thank you for that.
Nice. Yeah,
and listening to the show has humbled me greatly at my poor grid skills. I've biffed my share.
We've humbled ourselves on a few of these. We had a 505 grid. You know, we have a couple that are like, 13, and then it's like boom, 400, 500. Like, so it's been a mixed bag, but I mean, this is going to be good. Now, I know that usually a lot of times our goal is to get the lowest rarity score, but I know that we want to get some of your, you guys have a lot of baseball card knowledge and some interesting stories. So we're going to mix it up a little bit, and we'll throw some names. And if you guys have stories about some of these guys, I know you have cards, nearby. So we can dive into that as we go across the grid.
Yeah, I think before we dive in, like maybe for someone who hasn't listened to your show yet, like tell us a little bit about that and maybe how you started and like what we've listened, but what a typical episode sounds like and break that down for us.
So we got started in May of 2020, having nothing better to do than sit in an empty room and talk into a microphone into the void. And this has been an idea that was percolating in my mind, where I'm a ton of fun at parties. So I would ask people, if you could do any podcast about any topic, what would it be about? And then I would encourage people to get more specific. And I always said mine would be 1988 Topps baseball cards. And people would say, why do you collect baseball cards? And I'd say, no, I don't collect baseball cards. I'm a White Sox fan. So particularly this year, I don't even watch baseball. I don't want to talk about it. But when I was 8 years old, I would just sit and stare at the back of those cards and like read all the stats, look at all the, the guys who had 20 lines on there, read where they were from, learn about San Marino, California, and whatever town somebody was from. So those kind of things were always interesting to me. Matt was kind enough to join in this experiment here, and we decided, let's talk about every single card in this set, including the traded set. So that is 900 plus baseball cards. And we're going to talk about every dude in the set. We go through biographical information, who else is famous from their hometown, and then go through their career, what they've done in their retirement, and those kind of things.
Yeah. And I think initially the conceit of the show was, every card has a story to tell, and that's the tagline. And when we started, we thought, okay, well, some episodes, maybe we'll need two guys in one episode, because can you really talk about one guy for 30 to 60 minutes or however long? But as we've seen on the internet, men can sit around and just talk about guys that played baseball. And it turned out too, that it doesn't take too much research to find that each of these cards and each of these players do have a story, and sometimes really fascinating stories. And that just leads us to some really fun places, and sometimes really like sad places too, of where these players are, the ones that are still alive, right? I mean, there's, the 1988 set means you've got a lot of guys that are from their 50s to their 80s right now. So it just leads us to lots of good stories. I think that how this show fits with the grid and why we, I think, are a good, melding cousin of maybe your show is that the stories of each of these players takes them to different places, and they were famous sometimes in one team, but not at all famous on another team. And because our show is research based, we end up picking out some diamonds in the rough. I think I tweeted back at you about Jack Lazorko, a guy. I think I got a 0.02 with him on a recent grid, and that's just a guy that we looked at and we're like, here's a guy who was a minor leaguer for a long time and then major leaguer at, I think, 11 different teams, and just kept going. And then he would play today if he could, and then very different stories from, guys who quit playing because they wanted to play Nintendo and go back to Puerto Rico. Like, that's just the kind of stuff we find out. So that's what makes it fun for us, is not just the sport, but the people.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I've gotten to listen to a bunch of the episodes now, and I'm the kind of guy who listens to a podcast when I like mow the lawn, and I find myself like I got to turn the engine off because I got to write this guy down and look it up. Like, even sometimes like the guys you'll just mention tangentially in an episode, like Don McMahon is just a name I just wasn't super familiar with, and now I try to use him on the grid every time I can. Anyway, we could go on and on and on. We've got an awesome grid in front of us. I'll call out sort of, go for David. Yeah.
I do think that we actually maybe create better grid players than Matt and I are personally. The number of people who've tweeted at me about Don McMahon, and I was like, when did I talk about Don McMahon? And then I had to look it up that was a throwaway player. So
yeah, he got like a .009 for me the other day, and I was like, yep, tops 88. So yeah, I mean, let's just jump in though. So like, if you're listening, we'll call out like this is an all teams grid 278. On the left, we've got Orioles, Mets, Giants, and then we've got going across Rangers, White Sox, Pirates. So good mix of teams. Yeah, maybe throw it to you guys. Where do you want to start? Is there a box that jumps out, or?
The first thing that jumped out at me was that top left corner. There's a lot of good names in there with Will Clark. You've got your Rangers to Orioles pipeline. You got a Sammy Sosa in there. Any other good names that you guys were thinking of?
I mean, Rafael Palmeiro is like I feel like one of the more obvious ones. Nelson Cruz fits here also. I know there's others.
I mean,
those are the first two that come to mind for sure.
I think more recently, like Rougned Odor, I think, right?
Yep,
and
he works here.
I wonder if this is Mike Morgan, who I know like people have been talking on Twitter lately, like he's becoming like the next Edwin Jackson, where you throw Mike Morgan everywhere. So, but I don't. I know he played for. I think he played for Texas. I'm not sure he played Baltimore, but there's a lot of guys here.
And as a White Sox fan, I know at the end of his career, Harold Baines was in Baltimore as well. But I am thinking of a card that we did that I think is best known by 80s Red Sox fans, and that's Sam Horn. And so Sam Horn came up, he was this first baseman. He was supposed to be the slugger of the future for the Red Sox. Turned out he couldn't really play first base, and I don't think he ever played a game of first base in the major leagues.
Pull that up there.
But he played DH.
The biggest first baseman you've ever seen. Is that a natural looking? He's so big he can't fit on the card.
Wait, hold on. Is he bigger than Calvin Pickering? Because I know Adam, when he was on, he called out Calvin Pickering, and he said he was a massive matching first baseman. So
6'5", 215 it says here, but he was not 215, but 6'5", getting down for that ball. It's and then struck out 6 times in a game. Right, the horn, the horn of plenty. We just did an episode about this.
Yes, named as such by Mike Flanagan, who we just discussed this week. So Sam Horn, I think would probably be a good name because
Yeah.
he played in multiple different countries and led multiple leagues. I believe he led the Taiwan Baseball League in home runs and the Mexican League in home runs, and then came back and played very briefly, I think, at the end for Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. I
That's a
love
great
that.
one.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. That we call a lot of names, but I don't think Sam Horn is something that folks are throwing on the grid. So I'm good with it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's Sam Horn for Orioles Rangers.
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is.
0.06. Yes.
Point zero
Nice.
six hidden gem. You know when I laugh before I can announce the score, it's a good one.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's a great start. Okay. Where do you guys want to go next?
Just want to work across the top
Yeah,
here?
let's do the Orioles in a row.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Orioles White Sox next. Ooh.
I can't think of as many names as I could for the Rangers here. But the first one that popped into my mind, well, actually a couple of them that we've done were Phil Bradley, who was, I think, probably better known. And I may have actually used him on this grid when I did this grid. Phil Bradley was probably better known for his time in Seattle.
Yeah.
But he played a season with the White Sox, spent a little bit of time in Baltimore. Also Ron Kittle, 1983 American League Rookie of the Year.
I mean, not just Rookie of the Year, also hit a home run 700 feet onto the highway. This is allegedly hitting the car of the general manager that would come to the minor league park and then sign him on the spot because of the great home run he hit.
What?
Ron Kittle.
Ron
Indiana.
Kittle, legend in his own mind. Indiana's own Ron Kittle, by the way. Here we go.
Wow.
The big man from Gary.
That's Phil Bradley. But we can do, Ron Kittle's probably going to be a high scorer, though, don't you think?
I wonder how
So I
many
know
people
he-
think about him on the Orioles. Like, I personally, we asked Adam this question about like, what's the age group of people who play the grid? Like, I would love to know that, to know who we're like competing against. But I know like I only learned about Ron Kittle really after like biffing the grid, trying to put other people for Rookie of the Year and having people on Instagram tell us you got to put Ron Kittle. So I don't know any people are putting him for Orioles, but Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, we had
he
White
was
Sox.
the Yankees. He was a Yankees in 88 tops.
Oh,
Beautiful.
nice.
I know that we used him. I think it was, I want to say like grid 21. So we had White Sox Rookie of the Year. We put Jose Abreu. My soul left my body. It was like 61%.
Yeah.
And then we learned from the comments, no, don't do that. Ron Kittle. So we've used Kittle, and actually in making the graphics, like I make the thumbnails that you see on the reels if you look on our Instagram profile. But in looking for pictures of Ron Kittle, I did see him in the Orioles jersey. But I mean, it's not. I didn't know about him before that, and I didn't know he played for anybody. Like I couldn't tell you anything about him. Sammy Sosa, I know we mentioned him for the Rangers box, but he works here too, right? Didn't he? Didn't he
did.
play a little bit for the White Sox at the beginning of his career?
Yeah, and there's some older White Sox guys too, Louis Aparicio and Hoyt Wilhelm, two Hall of Famers. I know we can voyage outside of the 1988 realm sometimes, but I feel like those guys might be a little bit higher because they were actually both good for those teams.
Yeah. I think either of those guys like that you called out makes sense. I mean, you guys are the guests. Why don't you make the call?
Ron Kittle, let's go with Ron Kittle. He is he's still making some artwork out of wood, out of old bats. He makes benches out of bats.
Yeah, you can order them from his website, but he does like gifts for former players and current players. Very special.
That's awesome. Whoa.
This guy just became the most interesting player we've ever talked about. With a 700-foot home run. Now he's making stuff out of wood. All right, Ron Kittle, let's get him on the grid. 0.6%.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thought that would be higher.
So 2 hidden gems in a row. We'll finish out the Orioles roll, guys, with the Orioles Pirates, and triple play is in play if we can do sub 1 here.
Yeah.
Orioles Pirates. Did Bobby Bonilla end his career with the Orioles, like
He did play for the Orioles. Yeah, that's a great one.
Mm.
Who else? There was that slipped my mind. Ignore me. Somebody.
I'm just looking at the shows that we've done from the Orioles. I don't have any of it. In 200 shows, we haven't done any Orioles that have gone that direction. But I'll check the Pirates. But nothing comes to mind here right away for me from our show.
I don't know what it is about the Pirates. Like, I feel like we often have guests on who know the Pirates better, and they just escape me. I'm like, you look like you might have something there.
I just got so Pedro Alvarez. I mean, he's probably, what was he, about 8-10 years ago? He
Yeah.
corner infielder. He was a decent home run hitter, struck out quite a bit, but he played for both. Jose Bautista works here too. I
Joey
remember,
Bats.
I forget who mentioned this, but yeah, Bautista played for 4 teams in his rookie year, and one of them was
Wow.
the Orioles. I think there was the Reds. I forget the other one, but I think the Pirates is where he ended up, and then he was there. Obviously, went to Toronto, but yeah, I think he works here too. Josh, do you have anybody else?
I don't think I've got anyone really significant here. I'm trying to. Yeah, I like the guests we've thrown out, but Pirates just escape me really.
Oh, okay. So maybe David or Matt, you can help me out here. Does Joe? This is like a Mets utility guy from the early '90s. I know he played for the Orioles. I know he played for the Expos. I think he may have also played for the Pirates and might be in your deck of cards. Joe Orsolak.
I know the
I can't
name.
remember if he played for the Pirates, but
He
I'm
was
pretty
definitely
sure.
an Oriole.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I feel like I have a card somewhere. I have a very limited collection. I need to do something about that, but I feel like he may have played in Pittsburgh.
I think we should go with Joe Orsolak
You want to go with
because
Joe Orsolak?
I think that I've actually looked him up and I don't remember if he's even in the 88 set. I think that there may have been one of those like breaks in a career or like went back to the
Wow.
minors, something like that. But that sounds right.
Okay. Okay. You want
Let's do the
Let's
risk.
do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Joe Orsolak? I love getting these
yeah,
because these are guys I watched
15
like when
years. He's got to be. Come on.
yeah, he's right in that
yeah.
range. All right, let's see if it works.
Nice.
2%. Wow.
2%.
All right.
That's shocking to
Joe.
me. Like,
Shockingly
Wow.
high.
yeah,
Okay.
nice though. He's got the
All
Orioles
right.
hat on and everything. Yeah,
Good pull. Really good pull.
yeah.
Anytime I can get Joe Orsolak, or actually there's another guy. If you I don't want to take the reins here necessarily, but and same around the same time frame, probably a 4th outfielder for the Mets. I know he played in Baltimore actually, and with the White Sox. Dave Gallagher is a name
Well,
that we could float out
I
there.
was going to suggest Dave Gallagher for another square here.
Oh,
Dave
yeah.
Gallagher not in the 88 top set, but was in the 89 top set as an all-star rookie for the White Sox. So as a 9-year-old, I thought Dave Gallagher was going to be the next guy. He was my favorite player for a minute, and I have told him as such on Twitter, and I think he appreciated that.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I think we should go to that square and try.
Let's jump there. Yeah.
All right,
that's
Mets
stocks.
White Sox. Let's just keep plowing along here. Dave Gallagher.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, another one that would work there. You could go with Julio Franco in that one. He played for a lot of teams, but Dave Gallagher, love that guy.
Okay. Well, Julio also works in another box here. So yeah.
Every
right.
grid.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Adam said
He's playing to this day.
This is Julio is Adam's guy, and like I know Adam says that the computer generates the grids, but like, does the computer know that Adam loves Julio Franco? Or like, I mean, yeah. But Dave Gallagher, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, Dave Gallagher, 0.1%
Nice.
another hidden
All right.
gem. Oh
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
nice. You want to work backwards? Maybe complete out this row. Maybe Mets Rangers or
yeah, Rangers Mets. You've got the big one there is Nolan Ryan.
yeah.
Yep.
I also got
actually,
Travis Jankowski, but I think he like had a good deal of notoriety with that Rangers team in particular. I feel like people will recall him.
Yeah. Actually, real quick, I want to comment on the Nolan Ryan thing. I was just listening to your John Farrell episode where I think it was the scout or something. There was some connection between John Farrell, a scout, and the guy was like the same guy who found Nolan Ryan or something earlier in his career.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting tidbit. And I think Farrell isn't Farrell like a bench coach on the Mets now? I feel like he's in the Mets system. I could be wrong, but
He did manage the Red Sox and the Blue Jays,
right?
and I
Yeah.
think he might be floating around somewhere.
Okay.
Other Mets guys with the Rangers, I was one guy that we have covered is Kevin Elster. So sorry if that breaks
shortstop
fans' hearts who thought that he was going to be the next the next great one.
Is he a shortstop?
Yes.
Okay. You know what? I think I have a full, I don't know what deck it was, but in my binder, I have like my sleeves I have 3x3, basically a grid. And I have, for whatever reason, 9 Kevin Elster cards that just take up an entire page. And it was
I was
like
gonna say, I think a
distraction.
lot of guys got the Kevin Elster card because recently I went
It's
home.
it's a
That's the
future
one I
star.
have. The
Yeah,
future
the
star.
future star.
The future star. I mean, it's
Yep.
Yes, I was just
What
gonna
they didn't say
like,
there.
go for it.
What they didn't say there was that while he may not have been a future star in Major League Baseball, he was a future star of the silver screen when he played shortstop in Little Big League. And
Oh,
also in Little Big League, Pete Crow Armstrong's mom plays the mom in that.
Yes, that I remember.
One name that might be a good score here, Jim Fregosi. So Jim Fregosi, we covered in the 88 Top Set. He is the manager of my Chicago White Sox. I guess I should disown them by now. He's got a great zip up there.
Yeah, the jacket is really what makes this card.
Yeah.
But he famously was a New York Met after he was the return on the trade for Nolan Ryan from California.
Oh.
Yes.
And then he late in his career went to Texas. But he had about a half of a Hall of Fame career with the Angels before heading to New York. But I think that would probably be a good score there.
Yeah, I love that one too. And we've talked about actually when we had Jessica Brand on, and we've mentioned this a couple times, but like the strategy of taking that blockbuster trade or like the big name guy like Nolan Ryan, and then the flip side of it, who was the guy that came back? And I know Fregosi, you're right, he did have he was supposed to be and was for a bit very good, and it didn't quite work out for the Mets like many of their other trades. But yeah, I like I like Fregosi here.
Yeah.
All right. 0.3%. Another
0.3,
hidden
all
gem.
right.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, the Mets Pirates square. I mean, there's one name that jumps out like that immediately comes to mind for us, and not just because he was a Topps All-Star rookie in our set, but also because he starred in the video game RBI Baseball that is for Nintendo. That we have a segment on our show. Anytime one of the players on the card is in the game, RBI Baseball, we do a segment about them. And Al Pedrique was on the National League All-Stars in the video game. And here's the little gold cup that shows that Al Pedrique was the All-Star rookie for the Pirates.
Wow.
Al Pedrique, who now on the card, he had half a season in 87 for the Pirates, hitting .301, and had come up with the Mets, played 5 games with the Mets that season. But the back of the card we should show because it has minor league stats all the way back to 1978.
Wow.
So this was an all-star rookie who was 10 years in the minors before he became the all-star rookie in this set. So
he didn't play much longer after that. I think he spent one season with the Tigers after that, but he's gone on to be pretty successful as a scout. He found Jose Altuve and suggested that the Astros sign him despite his diminutive stature. But this is another one where Bobby Bonilla is the obvious choice here.
I don't know.
But no, we don't. When you can play Al Pedrique, you play Al Pedrique.
You play Al Pedrique.
Do that. Yeah,
That's right.
We've got Bonilla. I know we've talked about just Jeremy Burnitz here. Chris Benson works here. Oliver Perez.
Just a shout out, isn't this your guy, Blaz? Like Blaz
Blast.
Minor?
Listen, right now, Blast Miner is not performing as I would like him to be on Instagram. So if you could just go find that reel and just say anything at all about Blast Miner.
Yeah.
No, but and Ike Davis had a brief amount of time with the Pirates too. But we're going with Al Padrique, obviously, because that is way better
Let's
than
do
all
it.
of those.
We got a shot here. 0.09.
Yeah, nice.
9%.
Matt, awesome
So,
poll. Yeah.
so that's a triple play clearing out the Mets row there. All hidden gems, all under 1%.
Nice.
Fantastic. All right.
Look at Al
where do
Padrique
we-
in that picture. He's ready to go on to a long career after that All-Star rookie season.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
man.
Where do
All
we want to
right.
go? Where do we, Giants row is the last one left.
Yeah.
Well, Pirates Giants. So because our friend Adam Dorowski gave us the shout out that led to us being here, the first time that we had Adam on, we talked about Big Daddy, Rick Russell, the pride of Quincy, Illinois. Look at that mug. And we talked about Rick Russell's, his brother Paul
and his
Russell.
brother.
I've never heard of his brother. I know the name Rick Russell.
They
I didn't know
both
he had a
played
brother.
for the Cubs, and there's a card with both of them on it, and they're two big boys.
Big boys. The story was that they was the buffet and the church, or like the church pancake breakfast or something, like, oh no, the Russell boys are coming.
I think that one of their teammates said that they clear out a buffet. But Rick Russell had a very quiet, under the radar career that put up basically Hall of Fame level wins above replacement. And so he had some of the best seasons in the 70s, but played for the Cubs, who at the time were pretty bad, playing in Wrigley Field. He also played with a terrible defense behind him, like never had a Gold Glover behind him. But if you look at his stats and his expected stats, he was a really great pitcher, then pitched into the 80s, maybe most famously gave up a home run while Ronald Reagan was on the microphone during the All-Star game. Rick Russell served up a huge home run to Bo Jackson in the All-Star game. And the president was calling the game at the time. So Rick Russell, I don't know that he's going to get us a point because he actually made All-Star games for both of those teams. But for Adam, I think that we should.
Yeah, I love that. There. And again, this is a story-driven baseball card-driven episode. I'm down to throw Rick Russell on here.
Let's give a
shout out to Adam for actually connecting and helping us find these guys. Let's get Rick Russell on there. 2%. Hey, that's really good.
Okay, that's better than Barry Bonds was going to get us.
Probably a little bit better.
I think McCutcheon played out in San Francisco for a little while. One of my current favorites.
Melky Cabrera too, I think.
Oh yeah, the milkman.
And Mike, your guy, Mark Melanson, does fit this, right? I mean, we try. I don't know why we try to fit Mark Melanson on every grid we can if we can. He always scores so low.
One day, actually, he might have been more because he was. I feel like when I have him for Pirates and Diamondbacks, he's usually higher. Giants, not so much, but yeah, I mean, listen. One day, Mark Melanson.
We'll get him on the show.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Like how many times? Yeah. We actually haven't reached out to him directly or anything like that. But if it's in the ether, just Mark Melanson, join us for a grid, please. All right. Giants, White Sox.
So last week or 2 weeks ago, you guys talked about a guy who I love, who's another All-Star rookie in the 1988 top set, and that's Ellis Burks. Played for both of these teams.
Yeah,
Ellis Burks.
There's a
special place
similarly, and he was pretty good for the White Sox, I think, for 1 or 2 seasons. There's a pretty good pipeline of guys going to San Francisco as well. The white flag trade in the 90s, where the White Sox sent half their team in the middle of a pennant race, but in exchange they got Keith Folk back, so he played for both. But I think they sent Roberto Hernandez to the Giants. But Ray Durham played for both those teams. White Sox, great. And Juan Uribe, World Series winner, I think for both teams, and famously had a fish fry that went awry that destroyed the home that he was living in.
What? I feel like I did not I don't know that story, and I feel like I need to look this up now.
Yeah.
That's terrible,
My
though. But
my
I mean,
fantasy
that's
baseball team was Juan Uribe's fish fry for a while. I'm not very good at fantasy baseball, but I have a good name.
That's half the battle.
Didn't the Yerminator go there as well? Your mean Mercedes. So after
Oh, he
Oh,
broke in really hot with the
with
White
the White
Sox a few
Sox,
years
yeah.
ago, and then did he
but
go to the Giants after that?
I think that he was there maybe the next year, like signed a minor league deal and then ended up playing for
Okay.
the Giants for a little while.
I remember
Hmm.
him resurfacing within the last year or two. I just can't remember where, but I take your word for it. That might be a good one. But I mean, I mean, anybody else that we feel like we really want to throw here?
I don't know that I want to throw him on here, but to call out, I'm pretty sure that Kenny Lofton works for like both of these boxes remaining because
Yep.
we've talked about it before. He's just like, and if you're just listening, like Kenny Lofton is like a grid hack, I feel like, because he had just those 1 year stints with so many teams. And I'm pretty sure the Giants, the Rangers, and the White Sox all fit it. I don't think we should throw him on here because we can get someone more that we haven't put on, but great player.
Yeah. He played for like 11 teams. He's
Yeah.
very good for the grid. Who do you guys want to use here? I mean, we got a number of really good
Oh, I
options.
just named a bunch of guys, and I don't know who's going to be who's going to be good.
We do this all the time.
I mean, the fish fry story,
Yeah.
you know, if we were to do a show about him, you know, that's what we would
Yeah.
lead with. So let's go with it.
All right.
Juan
Juan
Yeah.
Uribe also
I
for
do.
that?
As a White Sox fan, I have a special place in my heart for Juan Uribe.
All right, let's get him on the grid. 4%.
Nice. Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Nice. And close
Giants.
it out.
Yeah, Giants, Rangers, Carlos Beltran, right?
Yeah.
Carlos Beltran played for both. Um, who else do you got there?
We talked about Will Clark for that top left corner.
Yeah.
He would work in that one. There's a name that I'm trying to remember where he was at in the 88 set. So Matt, I'm going to see if you can flip through your cards there.
Okay.
I think Tom O'Malley played for both of these teams. And Tom O'Malley is a name that he was at one point expected to be like the third baseman of the future for the Giants. And then he ended up playing in Japan. And I think that he was an MVP in Japan and won a Japan series. And I think that in the 88 set, he was a Ranger, but I'm pretty sure, I know he played for both of those teams.
Yeah, I think he was in the Rangers. I just didn't. I'm looking real quick.
I thought the name sounds vaguely familiar. I think I might have his card somewhere in my binders, and I thought he was a catcher, but I've also not looked extensively at my cards in a bit, so I'm probably wrong.
There's probably an O'Malley behind the plate somewhere, but in the early 80s, he was supposed to be the third baseman of the future for the Giants, and he was pretty good for a couple seasons, and then it didn't quite work out. But then by the by the early 90s, he ended up playing in Japan and being a star, and here's
Tom O'Malley. He's got a very odd look on his face. Let me try to get him out of the light there. Just looks very surprised that he made contact with the ball.
I think by that point he was a journeyman.
All right. I'm down with that.
White Sox 12 games with the White Sox and then 45 games with the Rangers this season that he was here. So if this is a high number, I'll be very surprised.
All right. Tom O'Malley to close us out. 0.06%.
And we kept it in single digits, guys.
We did.
Like,
wow. So we got overall 9 score on this grid. That's rarefied air territory. Single digit grid. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hidden gems. This is a great. I mean, not only is this great because of the score, but like the stories that you guys told are fantastic. And just the names, like I don't think we've thrown, besides Ron Kittle, I don't think we've thrown any of these names before. Like these are all new for us. So
I did give you the warning beforehand that if you picked a team that did not exist prior to 1990.
Right.
I was going to be worthless.
Yeah, you're out of luck.
I mean, we're trying to be good hosts. Like that would be brutal to do to you guys. Like,
yes.
yeah.
Well, I got to say that, I mean, we didn't think that our show would be, its main purpose would be to educate grid players for the next 13 years. I think that we have left to complete every single card in the set. Because 792 plus the traded. So we're about to hit our 200th episode. We have a lot of cards and a lot of weeks to go. So yeah, if you want to find out more hidden gems, check us out. We'll be around for a while.
Yeah, on that note, I think we said at the top, like just definitely recommend checking out the podcast. Also follow them on social. So Tops 1988 on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And 1988 Tops Podcast everywhere else and on Instagram, right? So yeah, Mike, do you want to recap it for us? I mean, this is just great stuff.
I mean, we got a fish fry on here. We got a 700-foot home run. We've got a massive first baseman who, might rival Calvin Pickering. We got Al Padrica. I mean, like, what? I could go on and on. This has been such a fun grid. Check these guys out. And if you're looking for us on the socials, if you're listening to this, we have a YouTube channel. Check out the videos where actually you can see Matt holding up a bunch of cards throughout. And if you're watching this, we have a podcast. So check that out too on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the whole thing. Ordinary Effort on Instagram, TikTok, although we're not really doing much on TikTok much. And then Ordinary Effort _ on Twitter. You can find us there. We're doing grids just with everybody. We've had a lot of fun guests. These guys have been great. Matt, David, thank you again for coming on.